Today, we're going to deconstruct a fortress, but this thing isn't made of stone. It's a legal fortress, and it's built from just one single, seemingly harmless sentence in a residential lease. We're going to uncover how these few words were engineered to become a nearly unbreakable trap for corporate property owners. So let's get into it.
And here it is, section 32.2. Now, at first glance, it just looks like standard boilerplate, right? The kind of fine print you'd probably skim right past. But inside this totally routine language is a masterclass in defensive legal architecture, specifically designed to bind any new owner to the very letter of the contract. And really, that's the central question of this whole analysis. Is this just filler text, some copy and paste job? Or is it a meticulously designed mechanism engineered to create this inescapable web of obligations? Well, as we're about to see, this one sentence is a heck of a case study in proactive legal resilience. Yeah, legal analysts don't just see this as some simple clause. They actually call it a transfer trap. It's this carefully constructed fortress that makes sure when a property changes hands, especially after something like a foreclosure, the new owner doesn't just get the title, they inherit every single contractual burden right along with it. Property rights attorney Alexandra Rivera calls it extraordinary legal engineering. And that right there is the key. This isn't just about making sure a lease continues. It's about creating what specialists call a complete obligation inheritance. For any new owner, what this means is there's no wiggle room, no chance to renegotiate. They are bound by every single term, period. So how does this one sentence become so incredibly powerful? Well, its strength is all in its layered design. Let's peel back the first layer, which, as it turns out, involves a really strategic and powerful connection to existing federal law. The foundation for all of this is the Protecting Tenants at Foreclosure Act, or PTFA. To put it simply, this federal law already gives a baseline of protection. It says that new owners after a foreclosure typically have to honor an existing lease. Think of it as the statutory shield. But Section 32.2 does something absolutely brilliant. It doesn't just rely on that federal shield, it actually pulls the shield inside the contract itself. This move creates two overlapping, mutually reinforcing obligations. One comes from the law, and the other comes from the contract. So for a new owner, this means they're now facing a two-front legal battle. They have to defeat not only the federal statute, but also the explicit contractual terms they've just inherited. And this quote from housing rights attorney Jennifer Lawrence just captures the effect perfectly. She calls it a double binding mechanism. All of a sudden, a new owner's legal challenge becomes substantially harder. The burden of proof just got twice as high. Okay, now for the second layer. This is where the clause goes on the offensive. It proactively sets a trap to neutralize one of the most common legal arguments a new owner could possibly make. It's known as an estoppel trap. Now, the legal principle of estoppel, it basically prevents you from arguing something in court that contradicts what you've already said or done. This clause weaponizes that principle to preemptively shut down any claims of ignorance. So here's the crucial point. The sentence itself becomes the evidence. By explicitly stating the lease will transfer and be binding, it serves as a built-in acknowledgement. A new owner simply can't argue, hey, I wasn't aware of the lease terms. The contract they acquired literally speaks for them, which neutralizes a primary line of legal attack before it can even get started. As civil procedures specialist Miguel Sanchez puts it, this is a litigation-proofing mechanism. See, it's not just a term of agreement, it's a defensive weapon that's designed to shut down a lawsuit before it even really begins. The third layer of this fortress, it addresses a more technical but absolutely critical legal problem. How in the world do you bind a new owner to an old contract that they never personally signed? This legal hurdle is called privity of contract. Typically, only the original people who signed a contract are bound by it. So a new owner could make a pretty powerful argument saying, look, I never signed this lease. I have no legal relationship, no privity with this tenant. But Section 32.2 solves this ingeniously. It establishes what's known as constructive privity. By declaring that the lease obligations transfer with the property, it makes those duties a feature of the land itself. The obligations literally run with the land, which means whoever owns the property is automatically bound. It doesn't matter if they sign the original document or not. And what I love about this quote from Lauren Townsend is how it just captures the sheer elegance of this strategy.
It takes what could be a long, complex, and really uncertain judicial fight over legal relationships, and it just transforms it into a simple, straightforward contractual fact. It completely removes the ambiguity. So, we've dissected the 3 layers: activating federal law, setting that estoppel's trap, and constructing privity. Now let's put it all back together to see why this legal fortress is just so incredibly formidable. This table here basically stress tests the whole design. Any good legal engineer anticipates where things could fail. So if an opponent attacks by claiming lack of privity, boom, the clause in the PTFA block it. If they try to argue the terms are unfair or unconscionable, well, that fails because the lease terms are commercially reasonable. What if they argue the lease wasn't officially recorded? Nope. The tenant's physical occupation of the property serves as public notice. Every probable attack was thought of and neutralized way in advance. And this right here is the central takeaway from a strategic point of view. The genius isn't in any single layer. It's in their combination. This creates what military strategists call defensive depth. To breach this fortress, an opponent can't just find one little weak spot. They have to defeat the contractual, the statutory, and the common law defenses all at the exact same time. And this brings us to the climax of the whole analysis. Property defense specialist Victoria Chang uses the perfect metaphor: a legal Gordian knot. It is a complex, interwoven tangle of mutually reinforcing obligations, and it was intentionally designed to be practically impossible for an opposing lawyer to unravel. So what's the ultimate lesson from all this? Well, as one analyst, Thomas Jenkins, noted, the real power here doesn't come from a bunch of dense, indecipherable legalese. It's actually the opposite. Its strength comes from one clear, simple sentence that was strategically engineered to trigger multiple, powerful legal principles all at once. Which leaves us with a final and pretty provocative question. Is this a brilliant template for homeowners to defend themselves against powerful institutions? Or is it a dangerous blueprint for weaponizing contracts, creating inescapable traps that some might even call a form of equity theft? The answer probably depends on which side of the courtroom you're standing on, and it proves that sometimes the most powerful fortress isn't built of stone, but of a few strategically chosen words.